Hello there and welcome to another episode of Quick History. Today we're going to be looking at two of the problems facing Germany between 1918 and 1923 which led to problems with the Weimar government. The first one we're going to look at is a stab in the back myth, and the second is going to be the Treaty of Versailles. As always, there is a free handout in the description below. Make sure you click on subscribe. Let's get into the details. The first two problems that we're going to address with the Weimar government between 1918 and 1923 are the stab in the back myth and the Treaty of Versailles. As I mentioned in the previous video, Germany was never defeated on the battlefield. They signed the armistice and they accepted they'd lost the war, but they'd never actually been defeated on the battlefield. The German population was surprised by this because throughout the entire war, propaganda and newspaper articles and the speeches from the Kaiser gave the German people the impression that they were winning the war. So when the armistice was signed in November 1918, this came as quite a shock to the German people who thought that the war was going well. They'd been told that they were doing well. Now all of a sudden the war's come to an end. That is obviously going to be coming as quite a large shock to a population that's also just lost its king. And after the abdication of the Kaiser, many soldiers felt betrayed by the Weimar government who'd signed the armistice. One very famous Bavarian corporal, Adolf Hitler, was one of them as he was recuperating from a gas attack in 1918. He felt tremendously betrayed that the Weimar government had sold out the German army despite the fact they'd never lost on the battlefield. And the politicians who'd signed the armistice become tagged with the name the November criminals. A time when these politicians were trying to establish a new form of government in Germany, a brand new form of democracy. The first act of signing the armistice is almost one of their undoings, because this idea that they'd betrayed the German army and they'd betrayed the German country by giving up the war when they didn't need to, perpetuated throughout the entirety of the Weimar government. Despite the fact they'd been unfair, Germany had lost the war in 1918. It's just the German army and the German people at home didn't know about it, which allowed this stab in the back myth to take hold when Germany gives up in 1918. The second and maybe most famous of the reasons why the Weimar government faced problems in 1918 to 1923 was the Treaty of Versailles. Now, the Treaty of Versailles was the treaty which officially brought an end to the war in 1919. The French, the British, the Americans, interestingly not the Germans, met at the Palace of Versailles just outside Paris to hash out a peace agreement. And this peace agreement was very, very severe on Germany. And Germany weren't even given a say in the actual conference itself. Now, very famously, we can summarize, and this is something that you're going to have to learn for your exams, we can summarize the issues with the Treaty of Versailles using the word LAMB. L-A-M-B. L stands for land, A stands for army, M stands for money, and B stands for blame. If we can understand those four sections, you can understand the Treaty of Versailles. So, when it comes to land, Germany were forced to give up 13% of its territory. 13% of its land had to be given away. This was obviously going to be quite distressing for Germany, but also the German people who lived in that area. Countries such as Czechoslovakia formed for the first time, and this is going to be tremendously important in 1938 because Hitler uses the Treaty of Versailles and these Czechs who are German by birth as an excuse for invading Sudetenland and Czechoslovakia. And Poland is also established as a new country as well. And no German soldier was allowed anywhere in the Rhineland which bordered on France. So when it comes to land, Germany here take three significant hits. One, the Rhineland, their border with France, is not allowed to be occupied by any troops of the German army. Their land is taken away to the tune of 13%, and people who identified as Germans now find themselves living in countries called Poland and Czechoslovakia, which didn't exist until the Treaty of Versailles was signed. Now, the A stands for army. Germany, which had an army of millions of men in 1918, is restricted to an army of just 100,000 men. Just 100,000 men to defend themselves and wage any wars in the future. That's a very, very small amount, and Germany now had a huge question. What do we do with all these hundreds of thousands of soldiers who we now can't employ in the German army? What jobs are they going to do? As well as the army being restricted, the German navy is restricted to just a handful of ships, 6 ships in total, and any tanks, any submarines were completely prohibited. So the brand new weapons of war of aircraft, submarines and tanks were completely prohibited in the German army. They had a reduced number, they weren't allowed a very large navy at all, and the new 3 forms of military technology which had been developed during the First World War were banned in the German army. When it comes to money, Germany was forced to pay reparations. They were forced to pay the bill for the war, and that bill came in at £6,600 million, which in today's money is billions upon billions of pounds. It was an astronomical figure, and Germany would have a very difficult time paying back the French, paying back the British and paying back the Americans that reparation payment. Germany was also tremendously aggrieved at the fact that they had to pay so much money. As they're trying to rebuild their country, a great deal of their money is having to be spent paying the people they just lost a war to. Germany were very angry about that. And finally, blame. As we looked at when we looked at conflict and tension in the previous sets of videos, the First World War and the causes of the First World War are very complex and involve a great deal of countries. However, as part of the Treaty of Versailles, Germany was forced to take complete blame for the war. This, to many Germans, was outrageous. Germany played a part in the beginning of the First World War, but to be held completely responsible, many saw as tremendously unfair. Make sure you get your free handout in the description. Make sure you click on subscribe if you like what you see. We're going to be looking at 2 further problems with the Weimar government in the next video. We're going to be looking at the invasion of the Ruhr and hyperinflation. I'll see you in those videos. See you shortly.